So now we're going to have a fireside chat, some kind of roundtable, and our speakers are going to answer your questions in informal atmosphere.
Yeah, so we'll probably be more friendly, like more easygoing, and sit just on table because it's very friendly conversation. Like, feel free. We are going to talk about some future trends, what is happening with Google, what is happening with technology in general, and take some questions from audience, because we have great speakers. We probably already was on some of their sessions, especially Dima's one. He has no break, so we'll start with a short introduction of our participants of the chat. This is Said from Turkey. He is GDE of Android, and probably Said can say a few words about himself. Could we have a microphone?
Hi, I am Said from Istanbul, Turkey. I have been developing Android for a long time, and like 9 months ago, I became a Google developer expert on Android. What else should I say? I guess that's it. Looking forward to see your questions about Android.
Next, our participant is David Ostrovsky. He's a developer relation from Google. He was working in Poland, but now he moved a little bit further from us to Switzerland.
Hi, my name is David Ostrovsky. I work in this developer relations team at Google, which is part of engineering. I used to be a developer myself for many, many years, mainly with Java. Yeah, I'm open for any questions regarding technology or Google in general. And yeah, thanks.
And last participant is Dima Maleev. He is director of Live IT School, but he wants to talk about himself, I guess.
I'm Dima. I'm pretty shitty coder. That's why I'm teaching people how to code in Lviv Code School. So, and also I'm working at EPAM. That's it.
Okay, thanks for introduction. And now we are going to start with question. Like, I'll ask questions, and one of you, I think, can answer them. First question will be probably to David. Recently, Google changed structure and become Alphabet. Like, it's a huge change inside the company, but what will be the effect for us, for developers, for users?
I think for developers, not many things changed because Google is still Google, actually. So Google is right now, like a sub-company, subsidiary of Alphabet. The change is mainly about, moving some of the crazy projects to be in Alphabet, and Google still remains Google. So it doesn't change much, I would say, for us developers. APIs, they stay the same. All of the things that were before, in terms of APIs, SDKs, it stays the same. Even for me personally, I was in the team, and my senior vice president was Sundar, and Sundar Pichai is now CEO of Google, so nothing changed here as well, even for my team.
Okay, and does it mean that crazy projects like Calico and all under Google X umbrella will have more freedom? And
yeah, I think they have a lot of freedom. I think with a company of this size, from time to time you have to do this kind of divisions just to maybe to let people focus on their projects. But we are still very close with all of the sub teams or other companies within Alphabet. So yeah, as I said, it doesn't change much actually for us.
Okay, thank you. If someone from the audience wants to ask something in the scope of this question, please raise your hand and we'll give you a microphone.
Is Google about to become evil? Because they dropped the "Don't be evil" subtitle.
No, I hope not. I hope we will not become evil. Actually, we take this kind of stuff very seriously. So there is like we have internal ethics team, for instance, that is checking various projects and so on. So, yeah, for this kind of stuff, yeah. So yeah, I hope we won't turn into the beast.
Okay, thank you for.
I think there's even a word like being googly or something.
Yeah, it's a term that we use, which it's not very well defined, but it means like being nice, responsible, and so on. So we try to be googly ourselves. And colorful is part of it.
Thank you. Our next question will be about web components and future of the web. It's probably more question to Dima, as he's working a lot with JavaScript. Like web development is becoming more and more object-oriented. We have almost the same abstractions. And what do you think about this? Where we are moving and to where we'll be in 5 years, for instance?
Well, till the moment when we will stop supporting Internet Explorer, we will not have web components as a very common technique, because a lot of enterprises and a lot of companies, well, for some reason still using Internet Explorer, well, just because of the support. So basically I think that Internet will move faster if Microsoft will not be in Internet. Well, I mean that if to speak even about browsers, they always green browsers like Chrome, like Firefox, like every other browser, and we still live with. I still have friends who is working and trying to support. Well, let's take for example Pentagon, right? They still using Internet Explorer things in some of their projects just because. They have a lot of government rules what software is to use in such places. And all the stuff is, well, very slowing. Even the bigger companies, they're still working, for example, with Internet Explorer 10, which is not great anyway. And it's slowing everything, but definitely web components will be future, will be common stuff. And we all moving there to Shadow DOM, to web components, to make HTML like extensible, and the guys in Google made this great with Angular, for example. But yeah, well, we're moving there for sure.
Okay, but do you have any time estimates? When do you predict we'll move completely? With the native support.
Native support in the like always green browsers, I believe it will be in a year. Less, but we still will have with legacy of Microsoft. We still will live with legacy of some of mobile systems, and you will be shocked when you will know that, for example, some bigger retailers are still using, for example, Windows Mobile, not even Windows Phone, but Windows Mobile, just because. And the only company which produces these mobile devices actually Motorola still, and. But a lot of software, like native software, is written for this. And so it will not be common for everybody, like for everyone. I believe in 3 years, we'll have time.
Okay, then next question is very related to this one. Does it make sense to learn like Polymer or AngularJS that basically replicate web components functionality that we can use now, or is it better to wait for native support? Polymer is very new. It was just launched on Google I/O, but looking into Polymer summits that took place in Amsterdam a few months ago, it looks huge. What do you think about this?
Well, if to speak about Google technologies, I believe it's better to start learning Angular 2.0, because it will be released in a year, right? Well, definitely, if you don't use some Angular stuff, you better use Polymer, for example. And in for example, in my case, we are using Polymer just because we don't have ability to use Angular, and we need something like web components.
Okay, So you're basically using Polymer only on a production-ready project.
It's enterprise, and we're using
Okay.
also Polymer.
Nice. Valentin joined us. He probably a little bit forgot about our session. Could you please join us? We're actually talking about Polymer and Angular. I suppose you have something to tell about that.
So
What is
was the
better to
question?
start with if you want to use web components right now?
Sorry.
What is better to start with if you want to build your UI with web component, like in web component style, Angular, Polymer, or you have some other options?
Right now?
Yep.
It's an interesting question, actually. I think Polymer would be the best right now, but I would wait for Angular too. I think it's very future-proof, and so if right now I would choose a Polymer. If some later, Angular too.
Well, I just quick addition. So we're speaking learn Angular or Polymer. Come on, to learn Polymer, you need 1 day, 1 day and a half. So learn Angular, learn Polymer. It will not take a lot of time, so it's not decision of your life.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have something to add?
Yeah, I see a lot of, a lot of movement around, of course, Angular, but I think Polymer is also growing a lot, and I think it's used more and more in many different ways. So, for instance, for fast prototyping, even for mobile applications like native mobile, a lot of people, they first do very quickly some stuff in Polymer just because you can reuse components, and they are super happy with this. So, even for stuff like prototyping. So, yeah, I would be a little bit more in favor of Polymer these days. But yeah, let's wait for Angular as well.
Okay, thank you. Next question about alternative languages on Android. Like most people hate Java development on Android. Most people don't like developing on Android because of Java. It's very verbose. They don't have support for lambdas and all this fancy syntax sugar. And now a lot of alternatives comes to market like Kotlin, Groovy. What is your experience, or can you recommend, what are your thoughts about this?
Years ago when they first started building Android, Java was a really good choice, I think. Because of that, most of the developers can easily start Android, and for example, if you want to develop iOS, you need to have Mac and you need to learn a new language. So it was a really nice starting point, but Android only supports Java 7 right now, and there is no feature, and they don't talk about it, the support of Java 8. And when you look at the web development and when you look at the iOS, they have Swift. All the web developers and backend developers, all of them are now using modern languages with lambdas and maybe functional programming, functional languages. So I think Android developers are the only ones left, and when you look at the alternatives, we have now actually unofficially Scala support, Groovy, Go language, Dart for Android as well. For example, Dart and Go languages are developed within Google, and they support Android. They started supporting Android as well, but it is not official. So the thing is that within the Android development life, Google Play services and the support library is becoming really important. They are becoming more important every year. So for the other languages, it is really hard to easily support, easily have all the support for the new features released in, for example, Google Play Services releases new features very frequently. So yeah. So for the simple platform features, platform APIs, it is always you can always do things with all the other alternative languages, but you will lack of the new cool things for time. Yeah, that's a burden. But I think amongst them, Kotlin is kind of different because it is also reason why it has become more popular and popular. You can directly access any Java code within Kotlin, and you can easily access Kotlin functions within Java. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I was looking into Kotlin for our library that we are developing at my work, and what I found that it's really good for writing business logic. Like if you have a shared code base among different applications, Kotlin looks really good. So maybe in a few years, because also JetBrains is behind Kotlin, and that the company has enough power and influence on developers to push this language.
Yeah, and since we are all using Android Studio right now, and Kotlin is developed by JetBrains, you will have easily full integration in your IDE. Yeah, that's another good thing. And I think they are just released or releasing the final release of like 1.0 release of Kotlin or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I tried on M14, and release 0.0 is about to become real. Okay, anyone has something to add? Maybe any questions from the audience? Okay, thank you. I'm moving to our next question. Our next question is really interesting for our country. Like, what is the future of education and how IT and Google can help into developing education? What efforts are done right now, and how do you see the future of education?
Comment on education? Or?
I believe you should start.
Okay, I can start. Education is super important for Google in general, but also, are we talking about general education stuff or developer stuff mainly?
I'm talking in education in general.
Education in general, okay. So Google is active in various areas regarding the education. I'm not sure if there is like anything super disruptive, although there is already some of the projects, for instance, around Android. In United States, they have the special like version of Google Play for schools. So the distribution model for applications is a little bit different. There is usually like one person in the school district that makes the decision about various apps that are required, that schools would require. And they can actually make the purchase, like the bulk purchase for the apps. So imagine it's not like single users are buying your apps, but one person that could make a purchase of 1,000 apps at once. And the distribution model looks like the schools have tablets or phones, and it's pushed automatically, it's installed and so on, updated. So I think that's what is most interesting for developers. What is changing in education? If we go really broad, then we have various initiatives like people are doing crazy things with Hangouts and this kind of learning on distance. Yeah, that's a very broad question. We also support various programs for schools for the next billion users, as we say, at Google, which means mainly India, to some extent also countries like Brazil, Indonesia. So there are various more local initiatives around education.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, during this Google I/O, it was presented a very nice project. Anyone know what I'm talking about? Yes, it's a really great project, and I think it's very tightly connected to the question about the education in the future. So it's the idea that in the classrooms they will share something like a cardboard. So all children, when teacher is speaking about, I don't know, some famous places like in Paris, all children can see it and feel like they're inside. So it's for my opinion, this project is extremely big step to the future of education, where the people get really into children get enthusiastic about what they're are learning, and just imagine that could be even not only famous places, but imagine when you're doing some physics lesson, you all children can see some what is molecules, what there's fields inside, or mathematics. You can visualize many things using technology like that. So I think it's a kind of future of education.
I got a question. So now, well, biggest competitor for Google, I believe it's not the Microsoft, which was, but more Facebook. So you obtained pretty same technologies, especially for education. You got the cardboard with your SDK, and they got Oculus Rift. And Mark Zuckerberg and Google CEOs and other people, they're working that we're gonna change education forever. So what do you think? Who will be winner in this fight? So,
how much was this?
We are not speaking about the cost, for example, because, for example, in healthcare, Android tablets are cheaper, but everybody using iPads. So let's speak about schools who got money, and for example, in US, where schools are supported by government. So let's not speak about money, but still, who will win in the education race, Google or Facebook? Because, well, the words from Zuckerberg and from Google are almost the same, except name of technology and name of company.
Yeah, but before we go to this question, we can talk more about what are actually plans about education and virtual reality. Like, is it only like showing molecules and nature around, or are there any further plans about developing virtual reality and education?
Yes. And I would also like to add that if we comparison cardboard with SDK and Oculus Rift is, well, they got this joystick when you can navigate and you can, so they got the pad which is providing more functionality than cardboard. And from my point of view, Oculus is, well, more, so Oculus got technology for visualizing and interaction, and Google got technology for creation. And because, well, with all respect to cardboard, we can compare cardboard and Oculus.
That was my question about money, not because something is cheaper. It's because different.
Accessibility level.
So that's why the question.
Okay, let me comment on this. I don't think there is a very hard competition in the area in the first place, and I wouldn't call it a race and who will win or take over the world. I mean, it would be great if education would be this important, so the companies are running to death to taking over. But I don't know. I think Google is making it in their own way without that much looking around. I think. You know, cardboard is the great project, and I think it's super affordable. Many of you here just created your own cardboards, I think, yesterday. So I think this is the power of it. So you can really, you know, send 300 cardboards somewhere where, you know, people didn't have access to any kind of 3D vision before, and you can get something out of it. But yeah, I wouldn't call it a race or, you know, anything
Okay,
like.
So, Facebook for US and Google for Africa.
I don't know. It's It's your words. No, as you know, as I said, I don't perceive it as some kind of, you know, like a challenge or a race between the companies. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone has something to add? Any questions from the audience? Yes, please.
Aurelia. Aurelia is already in production. So the idea of Aurelia is a kind. We took some modern technologies and we simplify the idea of Angular with all these bindings and so on, and use it right now. So I can say that if compare Aurelia and Angular 2, Angular 2 has a vision, has an architecture, very different architecture comparable even for Angular 1. And Aurelia, it's mostly the same vision architecture as Angular 1, but implemented with a little bit more modern technologies like ECMAScript 6 and some other web components, as I remember, is also using it. So if you want to play with the modern technology, start using Aurelia. If you want to have your app with a more deeper, more complex vision or architecture, like for example, a separate renderer, so your code could be later compiled to the native app on Android, or and in Aurelia you cannot do this. In Angular you will be able to do, or as I already mentioned in my presentation, some things like putting something in a service worker or web worker and do in a parallel processing. You cannot do this in Aurelia, but you can and will be able to do it in Angular.
We are stepping a little bit away from our question.
Yeah, I think it's not about education. No?
Yeah, it's not about education. We can move on. And the last question from me is about cloud. Like cloud computing is becoming more popular. We are moving everything to cloud, like all computing, all storage. We're moving like our life to cloud. What do you think about this? When we will actually be able to forget about our laptops and use only like any machine as a terminal to access all our data?
I think a lot of people are already there. Like I'm there. You can take my laptop right now from me. I don't need anything that is there. I can log into anything else and I will have the same stuff. That's the idea also behind Chromebooks. Chromebooks are working this way. But you know, with just a little bit of thinking and adjustment of the way that you are working, it can be done on any computer actually with Chrome. And I think at least within Google there is a lot of people working this way. We even have some developers. They gave up desktops, and they simply have the machine in the cloud. You know, so it's accessible from everywhere. You have the instance, and you can do coding, you can do deployments or whatever. So I would say we are already there.
Okay. But it's more about like basic usage. Like, okay, programming is possible, but if you need some more powerful features, like Photoshop, for instance, we are not there yet. And
I think there is already a web version of the Photoshop.
It's only web version, Creative Cloud. You
Yeah.
don't have standalone Photoshop anymore.
Yeah, but it's running on native machine. You have to download it, and it's not like running in the browser.
Yeah, I mean, there are two things. There are two things. Not everything that is in the cloud has to be web only,
Okay.
because there is a lot of native application as well. The difference is that they are very often Android or whatever. So I think we are getting there. Maybe not all of the apps are there, but I think there will be more. And actually, people are starting to moving completely to the cloud. Can you imagine the software that used to be run only on desktops or very powerful desktops, like I don't know, 3D imaging or something like this? You know, there is no reason to have it on the desktop, because then if you just want to, do some rendering, you can employ a lot of machines in the cloud, and it will be, within seconds. While on the desktops, that would be, ages. So actually, I think the biggest change will be here, because a lot of companies, they are still buying very expensive machines to have it locally and to run it for only for 2 days during the month, and then it runs for 2 days. It does all the rendering or whatever it does, and then it's unused. So it's a waste of money, actually.
Yeah, that's so question was about everyday usage.
Yeah, everyday usage, and for instance, for this conference, we have a lot of laptops of organizers, and now I can log into my Chrome account and use almost everything, but not everything.
So the question is, what you cannot do right now for everyday usage? So what you...
Yeah, and when it will be available.
Sorry?
And when it will be available for, what are your predictions about that?
I can say that now more and more software really become, they become a cloud software. It's not only web. It could be just, for example, when you use Android, you use Google Cloud messaging, and it's also cloud technology. But very interesting about the topic that was mentioned by David about how it will affect life of developers. Currently, mostly all development, I think about 90% of development is done by using some advanced IDE that's run locally. But this going to change. Even now in a Google Cloud console, there is a shell that's so you can administrate your cluster using any computer. You just log in your console and you have full access. You can patch something, you can edit source code and deploy it there. So it's coming, I think.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
I just realized that there is one more thing for the real users, I mean like ordinary users. It's the simple stuff like printing. Printing is also moving into the cloud. I just moved, I bought a new printer, I never connected it with a cable even. So, yeah.
Yes, I do have a question about ordinary users, those who have no idea what cloud is, how they can be involved in this stuff. So.
It's a task for all of us, I think. It's a task for all of us. So we are bringing those new technologies to ordinary people in the end. So just by talking or by creating great apps, and yeah.
Create better apps, right?
Ordinary users don't care about clouds. They care about usage. So they're using Google Docs and they don't care that this is cloud. So basically, they don't care. Why they should be involved? I mean, you got app, you're using. It's happening. It's a magic.
Actually, the word cloud is something that any person can just look upward and see clouds. That's the idea of the cloud technologies, cloud products. The interesting that I'm asking a lot of people, developers, and ask, what do you mean? What is cloud for you? Many people said, okay, it's when my data is safe, or I don't know, other things. But for general users, they don't care. Is it, for example, mail, webmail from Yahoo, I think it was present long before world cloud technologies appeared. So the question, was it cloud technology? I think yes. So people already using cloud technologies for long years, and they just didn't call it cloud.
Okay, we have a question from the audience, and actually it was the last question for me, and feel free to ask any question of our
I
guys.
can ask?
Hmm?
Can I ask, or is better from auditory?
It's better from the auditor.
Speaking about cloud, I just want to stress one point that when we use cloud solutions, we actually give a big credit of trust to cloud provider. And honestly, I personally give a big credit of trust to Google. And I'm regularly watching that video about Google data center, how it is protected, different physical security measures they take. So what I'm talking about is that, in my opinion, it cannot last forever. I mean, as long as my data is controlled only by one organization, I'm not sure that it is a long-term solution. And in my opinion, in future, there should be other solutions that have more distributed nature. I mean, when cloud is not controlled by someone, a central organization, but instead, probably it is divided and split to different providers that can get access to all my data or kind of destroy all my data. Hence, I think that something will happen in this area and change, not for normal users because they probably will not notice anything, but behind how cloud is implemented, probably something should change. It's my opinion.
I have a suggestion. This works?
Just one about smoke man. Just imagine this situation. One, you have some secret and you need to share. One situation, you go to one person and share it. Another, you have a 100 person and you share with all this 100. Who will trust it? So you think that people will be trusting to share the data with 100 people?
Well, you see, we have an example actually, the Bitcoin network, a system that is not controlled by some one infrastructure. Instead, a collective decision about whether to trust the transaction or not is made. And I believe that in cloud solutions, something similar should appear. Some distributed solutions, some distributed autonomous collective decisions should be something in that direction. So I cannot give you an answer, but I believe it.
You know about Bitcoin. You know why you trust Bitcoin? Because how you get from a lot of peers information from the last hash. But imagine if all of them are corrupt. Why you trust Bitcoin?
Well, I trust because the number of number of machines.
But
Because
if someone put so when you contacted the peers, they randomly select.
Right. Anyways, they support on the chain of 5 events, and in an hour, everybody will be synchronized. So
Okay, we are moving our discussion from our initial point when we started, and we have to wrap up, so we'll probably take one more question from the audience and continue, or from Dima. We'll prefer
I have
audience.
not a question, I have a suggestion regarding the final phrases regarding the clouds. So the most people have something like mistake when they say that we can't trust the cloud. If you think about your privacy, you should be paranoid regarding storing your data in the public clouds that belong to the third parties. but you have possibility to build your own cloud or to build solutions that are hybrid cloud, and you'll store your data on your own hardware, on the rented hardware in some data center, and so on. Cloud doesn't mean that you should push your data for someone. Cloud computing means that the computing process doesn't perform on your local machine. Your data doesn't store on your local storage. That means that simply these processes, your data, your computing processes, being active, are being performed somewhere. You shouldn't think about where and how. You simply receive the result of these processes. But the cloud shouldn't belong for someone. That might be your own cloud. So that is.
Thank you. We have to wrap up our discussion. Thank you for attendance and taking part into this discussion. Is it a short one?
Almost.
Or it's open discussion?
Okay, the question for Google. Okay.
Okay, one very fast question.
No. Google bought like Deep Dream, right? They bought Boston Dynamics, they bought a lot of company. Why the hell do we need Nest? And the well, yes, the killer robots with like thermostat. Smart. And actually the question, so on the Google I/O you've like announced a lot of stuff. For example, the photos which collect, you got the unlimited amount of data and all that stuff. And this is like a training model for your machine learning system. So my question, why Google invests so much into machine learning? Because actually you got all the technologies to make Skynet. Well, so the question, why Google invests so much in machine learning?
A quick answer.
Yes.
Machine learning is, you know, it's computer science, right? We were trying to develop every angle, you know, and machine learning is one of those. Why shouldn't we be doing this even, right? It's super useful. For instance, the goal is to serve users. I mean, if I can search for, you know, I write the name of my son and I see his photos, search, I like it. You know, that's something useful for me, and that's thanks to machine learning. So that's why we are doing it.
Well, you invest too much. The whole Google I/O was like about machine learning. Everything was about machine learning. So it's like
no, I think there were many things also beside machine learning. There were a lot of sessions on Android and Polymer and other stuff. So
I'm thinking about Keynote.
Keynote. No, I think there was everything there. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your answers. It's the end of Sessions Day, but now we have closing ceremony where you can win all the fancy prizes for contests, posting in social networks, and so on. We have 44 prizes to give away. So take your luck and see you on a closing ceremony in 5 minutes. Thank you.